Well, I was going to ask you also, what about Marlo? I mean, we have Marlo Hampton. Now she has her peach. Do you guys have any thoughts on what Marlo needs in a man?
Rich, white.
What?
That's her type. Ming, I would send her to Ming too. Let Ming match her too.
Men.
She only dates white. Are you sure about that? She only dates white men, Ming? Is that what you're saying?
It's been rumored that that's her sugar daddy.
Oh, wow.
Marlo is definitely about the
Y'all giving all the tea. I don't know none of this stuff, David. They just let me all in, bro.
But from my perspective, Marlo is right up Ming's alley. I would definitely refer her to Ming to be matched.
Okay. So she don't want no real black love, Shae? Is that what you're saying?
Don't think so.
I think Marlo is open to having love, but she is open to diversity, which she has done in the past, from what I've heard. I can't say for sure, but from what I've heard, she's definitely open to diversity and definitely open to men who are wealthy, who are doing well for themselves.
That makes a lot of sense. And before we move on, I just have to ask you, because Shae Whitfield is back on Atlanta. Sorry, Joseph, we'll move on to a topic I can involve you in too after this question, but Shae is back. You know, she was dating Tyrone, her ex, after he got out of prison. I don't think they're together anymore, but I just want you could weigh in on this too, Joseph. Like, where are we all with, prison records? Okay, or move on, not okay?
Me personally, just a little bit of background. I actually worked in the prison before. I've actually used to be a probation officer. I know people look at me like, no, there's no way, but yeah. So I do know that people can change. I've seen it directly. I was a case manager in the prison, and I had some great men that reformed themselves from their prior experiences, right? So I say, with women, I tell women all the time, just make sure you do your due diligence, right? Before you go down that path. But there are some great men that come out of prison and reform themselves and become great contributors to society, become businessmen, all the time you see it. I mean, there's a lot of stories out there that men are coming out of prison and doing great things for society, for their children, starting businesses, churches, all that stuff. But I mean, there's also the bad apples as well, right? Don't have a man come out because you just want somebody and he tells you everything you want to hear, and then you end up in a situation where you're getting used and abused.
Yeah, no, I agree with Joseph, especially when you think about the fact that there are a lot of men who are falsely accused and maybe didn't do anything at all. So one, people can be rehabilitated, and two, some people didn't do anything and just they were in the wrong place at the wrong time and ended up in jail. So I don't think you can just throw everybody a wide net and say anyone who's gone to jail is a no-no. I would not do that. I think every person has to be evaluated on a case-by-case basis. But of course, if somebody's doing criminal activity, like Apollo, for example, Phaedra's ex, then that's probably somebody I would steer away from. And I run background checks on all my clients, so that those people wouldn't come up in my options for you as a client anyway.
I've actually had a guy, Shae may not take more, but I've actually had a client, a female client, and we found a really, really great guy for her. And once we did the background check, we noticed he had some issues in his past. But these were like 20, 30 years ago, right? And they weren't too egregious to the point where it's like, oh no, like those big crimes. It wasn't big crimes, it was small crimes. And we presented it to our client, and she's like, yeah, I would love to meet him. And actually, guess what? They're still dating today. So, I mean, it's a case-by-case scenario,
Absolutely. I just know that for me, if I pay thousands of dollars, don't bring me a criminal. If I meet him on my own, that's one thing. But if I'm giving you thousands of dollars, don't present a criminal to me, sir. Thank you.
Well, me and my clientele, when we do background checks, I have to disclose the information to my clients. And once I disclose that information, they can choose whether they want to go on a date with that client or not. But it's up to them, but I have to disclose it.
Correct.
What about, because you guys talked about background checks, all three of you, what about, like, we have in the Bravo world, Lala Kent, she was dating someone, Randall Emmett. I don't know how familiar you are with this. They broke up. Now, Lala's not gone to a matchmaker yet, but she's come out. I mean, this is public knowledge. She uses private investigators now to date because she was with someone who was just a totally different person than she thought. Are you guys in favor of like what Lala's doing and using private investigators on your own?
I am totally not opposed to it, because right now we live in a day where people are insane. You don't know what you're getting anymore. I mean, even if you can be with somebody for 100 years and you still not know them, but it's very important, I think, that you do some research and background on people. I mean, I know you have single moms, you have, all kind of situations. So yeah, you want to know who you're getting in a relationship with, or who you're dealing
No,
with.
absolutely. I agree with Ming. Listen, if you have nothing to hide, why would you be worried about that? Like, I don't care if somebody said, oh, Shae, I did a whole extensive background check on you. I hired a private investigator. Good. Now, can we go on our date? Because I know I have nothing out there. But if you would only care if you had something to hide. You know what I mean? So I don't know why it would be a big deal, personally.
Right. And truth be told, you don't have to go that route of private investigator if you don't have the money for it. I tell especially all women, I tell them to do a background check. You could do that for literally $19 on the internet. There's about 4 or 5 different websites that I use personally, but anyone can use, right? And you can get at least the basics. You can actually find out a lot more than you thought you could about a person through a $19.99 background search, right? So you don't have to go 3 or 4 months down the road, and all of a sudden you find out, okay, he's an embezzler, or he's divorced 3 or 4 times. That stuff is public records. You can find that stuff out easily.
Absolutely.
Well, when
Nice.
you come to me, I have a special background check. So I don't want you to waste your $19. Come to me and get your special background check.
For $100,000, Ming?
Ma'am, please. If I pay you $100,000, I want a DNA test, an STD test, a credit
Right.
check.
I don't know
Oh my
about that
God.
$19.99.
I'm
Come
gonna
to me.
need a second born for that.
All of it. All the above.
I have a range from 25,000 to 100,000. Okay, don't forget. Okay.
All right.
What is your special background check? What does that entail?
Well, they would have to come see me and pay the money to see.
Pay $100,000 and find out.
Well, speaking of, $100,000 and high-end matchmakers, way back in the day, we had Patti Stanger,
Yeah.
the millionaire matchmaker. Did any of you, were any of you familiar with her? Did any of you reach out to her for advice, having been on Bravo?
She was actually one of my professors when I went through the Matchmaking Institute. She actually trained one of my courses. So I love Patti Stanger. I have seen every episode of Millionaire Matchmaker. In fact, that's why I named my business Middle Class Matchmaker. I really wanted to do it a whole, to a different level, but I love her. I love her a lot.
I don't like her. I've heard her a couple times on Clubhouse, and she's pretentious as hell. She's not to write to me either, so I don't know. I just, I go off of what people give me,
Yes, I do know.
He said she's not too bright.
Ming, do you have any thoughts?
I mean, the way she was telling people to date was like, are people literally listening to this? Hey, I had like 900 people in the room, and they're listening to this woman giving them the worst dating advice I've ever heard in my life.